Welcome to this week's episode of the Keystone Market Review. I'm your host, Iman and today I'm joined by someone who has quickly become one of the most talked about names in the cryptocurrency space, Mr. Luca Netz. He's the entrepreneur and operator behind Pudgy Penguins, a project that just started as a simple NFT collection and has since evolved into a global consumer brand. You've probably seen some of his toys on Walmart shelves and whatnot, or viral content on social media. But what's most impressive is how he did it. In a world of hype, Luca focused on execution. He built a brand that resonated with people, not just with crypto narratives, but with everyday people even outside of the space. And now he's turning his attention into something even bigger, a new project that is designed to bridge the gap between Web2 and Web3 and bring millions of users into the world of blockchain without all the friction. Here at Keystone, we focus on the tech side of crypto, the projects that solve real problems and stand the test of time. And that's exactly why I wanted Luca on the show here today. So today we're going to unpack what he's building, why it matters, and how it could help shape the next wave of crypto adoption. So let's get into it. Luca, thank you for joining me.
Aman, I'm so happy to be here. And you and I were just talking about this a couple minutes before you started recording, but I actually probably wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for you. My first ever introduction to NFTs was when you texted me and said you need to buy these crypto punks at like $10,000, $15,000. And that was the first time I was ever like crypto punks, NFTs. I went down the rabbit hole, year later, I ended up buying Pudgy Penguin, the whole entire NFT collection. But it was actually a little ironic because you've been a friend of mine for a while, and you're actually probably a huge reason as to why I'm here today.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, one of the major things that really impressed me about what you did is you had like depth of vision when you just looked at a basic NFT collection. You didn't just see images or NFTs. You had a whole vision of something and you just ran with it and not just like sold the idea, but actually executed it. So, I'm very happy you actually did that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And, to that point, I think the Pudgy story has been pretty incredible. It's, the biggest crypto native IP today, billions of views, 10,000 plus retailers around the country. I think it's something that I think the crypto space has needed for a while in terms of being able to invade the hearts and minds of everyday consumer with what I think is internet's Mickey Mouse. And now, as you know, we're going into the whole blockchain space with Abstract, really trying to create that consumer experience that I think the space ultimately needs. I think people don't are underestimating the final frontier that is the consumer adoption frontier for crypto. It is very much where the space needs to go now that you have the ETFs and all the institutional rails that have opened the floodgates here. And I'm really excited both on the top of the funnel IP side and then obviously on the back end blockchain side to help pioneer this revolution.
Yeah, I mean, from all the entrepreneurs and founders of projects that I've met, you've been the one to actually pull off something big. So, um, and connect the world of like regular consumers to crypto. So tell me more about this project that you're working on right now, Abstract.
Yeah, so Abstract is a consumer blockchain. And really, what I mean by that, or what we mean by that, is I think naturally the interface or how blockchains feel today, they haven't reached their Instagram style moment. So, an analogy I give to people all the time is if you navigate through Ethereum or Sui or just all the blockchains that exist today, it's very much a series of puzzle pieces that you have to put together to ultimately get the full, on-chain experience. I actually believe that, for these blockchains to scale to the everyday person, your local barista, it has to live on one central domain, one hub in which you can do kind of everything on chain. And so a huge focus for us as you kind of look at blockchains today, like what are the biggest problems that they solve? Well, ultimately, blockchains are payment rails, immutable payment rails that tap into global liquidity and global composability, right? And if you understand traditional handicaps today on current existing payment rails, some of the biggest handicaps is really around fun applications. And so what I mean by this is fun applications have huge risk parameters via payment processors, and those risk parameters ultimately take huge percentages of those fees directly from the enterprise business to the payment processor. Meaning, if I'm creating a fun new style game and the payment processor thinks it's high risk, they'll be taking 5, 6, 7, 8% of every transaction. And naturally, I think fun is a huge disruptor for one, I think consumer adoption, because everybody, whether you're in Web2 or Web3, understands fun. And on the flip side of it, I also think that blockchain rails solve a huge problem for fun applications that are currently being handicapped from scaling and getting the PMF that they deserve. And so a huge part of what we're focusing on is, I think, a couple things. I think the first one is we want to be the most fun ecosystem in crypto. We believe that a lot of people are in crypto because they want to make money, but they stay because they're having fun. And I think people haven't spoken to that language the way that I think they should have been these last couple of years. I think the second part is it's kind of built into the name. We want the entire blockchain experience to be abstracted. And we've kind of been like huge pioneers in this. If you kind of go to portal.abs.xyz, you can actually see what I believe is the best 0 to 1 crypto experience and the best, centralized and curated crypto experience that I think we've ever seen. So how do you actually create something where your local barista or your local waiter can go to one destination, one website, and do everything that they can want to do on chain without having to go somewhere else? And I think the third thing is really pioneering what it looks like to actually create the technical infrastructure for these type of products to scale and for other people to kind of build on top of it. So, account abstraction, paymasters, session keys, really trying to innovate on that whole side of the dev tooling to ultimately give people the flexibility to kind of build in the same spirit that we're building is probably the three prongs in which I think makes Abstract really special.
So like who would your kind of like target audience be for this? It's like the regular everyday person who has no idea anything about crypto. Like would they know that they're on chain? Does that make sense? Because like would they know that they're using the blockchain?
I think they'll know at a certain point, but they won't have the friction of getting on the chain that they would anywhere else. So I actually like the idea that people are using the blockchain because if they don't know they're using the blockchain, then ultimately there's not room for chains to have real breakthrough success, which is really predicated on volatility. Meaning, like, if you were to compare Tron and Solana, right? Like Tron is very much a perfect example of a blockchain where you don't know you're using the chain. Solana is very much an example where you do know you're using the chain, right? And so I think like they serve two different purposes. I want you to know that you're using the chain, but I want you coming in and being able to use the chain to be as easy as possible. Because right now it's a huge pain in the ass, right? I have to download a MetaMask. I have to then go to Uniswap. I'm putting a bunch of pieces together from a puzzle, currently using, blockchain today, or at least being on chain today. And so from our perspective, I want you to know, but I want the experience to be so good that you don't feel like it's on chain. Because right now, to be on chain, it feels like you're on chain. I want you to be on chain, but I want it to feel like you're not on chain, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So like removing friction such as like downloading wallets, storing keys, all that, like
All of that. And don't even take my word for it. I encourage everyone listening, just go to portal.abs.xyz. It is the best consumer experience in crypto. Fund your wallet. I do what I call the barista test, which is, if you go to your local barista and you tell them to buy this coin on Ethereum and you'll give them $1,000 if they can do it within 60 minutes, can they do it? I think there's probably a 5 to 6% probability that they can. If you tell them to go to portal.abs.xyz, I think they can do it in under 5 minutes, right? So fund a wallet, buy a token, and that's what I call the barista test, right? Can you go to your average Joe, give them a reward if they perform an action in a certain amount of time? In this case, the action is buying a token on the native chain. I think buying a token on Abstract 0 to 1 is the easiest experience outside of any other ecosystem.
so can someone just buy like the coin or buy a token without like with just putting in the credit cards?
Yeah, totally.
Straight up. Okay.
Yep.
That's definitely something that would help even a lot of even our subscribers because that's one of the hurdles that we help people overcome. Because a lot more
Mm,
people who aren't really tech savvy, we have to walk them through step by step. Okay, first download a MetaMask, then go on Coinbase, buy some ETH, move the ETH to the MetaMask, like all of this. So that's one of the biggest like kind of hurdles that gets people slowed down because once people, at least from what I've experienced here at Keystone and our subscribers, once people like come across one hurdle, two hurdles, they just stop. So the fact that you're just kind of solving that is going to bring a lot of people into crypto, I think, and it sounds like.
It's the biggest problem to solve. And people, like, once they're on chain, they're having fun and they enjoy it and people stay. The problem is nobody can get on chain. And
Yeah.
soon you'll even have Apple Pay. You'll be able to go to this website and even just, double tap on the right side of your phone and scan your face and be able to deposit. I think that's really our goal. Is just how do you just make it so easy? Because as you know, Aman, the biggest opportunities are if you can get the tokens before they go to Binance, before they go to OKX, before they go to these places,
Right.
right? People just, Binance and Coinbase makes this stuff easy. But if you can get in early enough, that's where I think the huge gains can come.
Mhm. So is Abstract live right now? I know you mentioned the website, but is that like fully live, operational?
Yeah, the chain is completely alive. I think we just crossed $100 million in TVL. We're getting a couple million transactions a week. We have some of the most fun ecosystem apps in crypto, I believe. So give them a shot. Just go again, portal.abs.xyz. Email, you literally log in. When you log in, you'll be asked to log in via an email. You'll get a code. You'll input the code. You'll have an entire smart wallet. No seed phrases, no nonsense. Just something that everybody here is familiar with and has done 100 times before.
Nice. Did you guys enable like login with your Gmail or something like that yet, or just
Everything.
okay?
Yeah. And it's all built in on a chain level, and that's what makes us and what we're building so exciting. So a majority of blockchains, I think, build what we call like a horizontal stack, right? They just really build the blockchain layer and just tell everybody to build on top of it. We've kind of built a whole vertical stack, meaning we own the wallet, we own the blockchain, we own some of the applications, we own the trading experience, we own the entire portal through to through. And I think that makes this a really compelling case, not only for the end user and the experience, but also for the enterprise value and the potential for abstract, right? Because, very few chains are owning every single part of the chain. And if you own every single part of the chain, you can integrate them and make that experience really seamless.
So are you looking to get like more developers on like building on Abstract, or is it just going to be apps that you build yourself?
Yeah, so I think I think today we have 100 apps deployed on Abstract. I think only two of them are built by us.
Okay.
So from our perspective is, we want more builders on the chain. We want more people building on the chain. I mean, ultimately, chains are built by the builders that are building on top of it. And I think we have one of the best developer programs and incentive programs for people building on chain. My core caveat is, if you're building the next great DeFi application, we're probably not the best chain for you, right? If you're building fun, viral, gaming, things that get people excited, social, I think that's really how we're optimizing. So, there's really two different types of chains. One is general purpose, which is like we do everything and anything. And I think that's a really fragmented and an anti first principles approach. And so we're taking a very purpose built approach, which means like we are going after fun and virality. And if it's not fun and viral, then it's probably not a fit on our chain, right? We'll turn people away and send them to other chains. And ultimately, I think it's a little more of a focused approach, which I think over the course of time will pay huge dividends.
Right. And on like the tech side of things, why would someone want to use like Abstract or build on Abstract versus other chains like Sui, for example? Because Sui does this very similar thing where it's easy to get on. But like how would that work out?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to what your appetite is, right? In terms of what you're trying to optimize for. I think from our perspective, you coming into our ecosystem is you're really making a bet on consumer and culture and adoption and those two verticals. And that's really what we're optimizing for. And then I think from a technical side, I believe that ZK and the ZK stack is the end game. Abstract is built on the ZK stack. We're one, I think, of 6 or 7 chains that are built around ZK cryptography. And ultimately, it's trustless. Like at this point, the way that, there's a funny a funny metaphor that I think a lot of people in the ZK community use, which is like you don't need to trust ZK chains. You don't need to trust the founders of the team. You just need to trust the code, right? Every other chain, you need to trust the founders and the team. On the ZK stack, that's not as prevalent. So I am a huge believer in the stack in which the tech is built on. I'm a huge believer in the ethos and how we're building. And ultimately, different chains do different things. But if you're optimizing and betting on consumer and culture and crypto, I think and really, you believe that the next frontier is this consumer adoption wave. I think we're eons ahead of the next person.
Right. And you mentioned like ZK and the ZK stack. For many of my subscribers, they most likely don't really like know what that is. So can you give a brief like explanation?
Yeah, so different blockchains are built on different languages and different stacks, right? You have the Optimism stack, you have the Arbitrum stack, you have the ZK stack, you have the Move stack, which I think Sui's built on top of. So each different stack and programming language means a bunch of different things. Some are more interoperable with others. They all have different drawbacks, different speeds, different efficiencies. Vitalik was quoted talking about the ZK stack, and most of the Ethereum community believes that the ZK stack is the end game. And so the ZK stack is really predicated around ZK cryptography, which is ultimately a type of way that you build blockchains that is immutable in the sense that it is really through and through, built by the code, executed on the code, and there's really nothing you can do outside of the code. And so code is law in this sense. A majority, if not every other stack to some degree, can be adjusted or can have some sort of there's some sort of trust that is put on some sort of third party, whether it's a founder or an intermediary layer, right? And the reason why I think ZK is so exciting is because ultimately, the proof is in the math, right? The math runs the decision and nothing can trump the math.
And does Abstract itself have like a coin or token, or is it
It
just
does not. It does not. So right now we're pre-TGE, so you can just use the chain. So we're pre our token generation event. But there is an awesome thing on the chain where you get rewards for using the chain. So if you're playing games, if you're spending money, if you're buying meme coins and collecting NFTs, whatever you're doing on the chain, ultimately every Tuesday you get a slew of rewards via XP distribution that can be found in your rewards tab. And every week, you'll see that number go up. And ultimately, that number will translate to an airdrop that you'll get sometime relatively soon, hopefully.
okay, very nice. And so right now you just want people to get on the chain and start using it. Is that right? Is that
Just
the
start
main goal right now?
exploring it. Yeah, and hold me to it. Like I want you guys to feel, I think it's a super exciting experience because even if you just try it, see what the future of crypto looks and feels like, right? At a minimum, because I think that'll get you bullish on the entire industry. And at a maximum, participate and start farming your XP. And if you believe that this thing is going to be a success, you can obviously, climb the leaderboards. And as you climb the leaderboards, you'll be put in a situation where you'll have a really awesome day sometime this year, hopefully.
Perfect. And what was the website again for people to go check it out?
Portal.abs.xyz. So portal, portal.abs.xyz.
Okay, perfect. I mean, Luca, thank you for joining us and sharing your vision behind what you're building. It's always refreshing to hear from someone focused on long-term impact, especially in a space that moves as fast as crypto does. And for those of you watching, if you've been following us for a while, you know our mission at Keystone is very simple, to help investors cut through the noise and focus on tech-driven cryptocurrencies that actually solve real-world problems. So if you found today's conversation valuable, make sure to subscribe and, stay in touch. As always, stay sharp, stay informed, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us, Luca.
Yeah, thanks for having me.